It looks like crypto is all the same. When Bitcoin is going down, most altcoins go down as well. When Bitcoin is going up, the altcoins and Ethereum go up as well. But there is a slight difference. The selling pressure that we have seen from Bitcoin is different to the selling pressure that we've seen with Ethereum. Most of the negative price action for Bitcoin comes from people that are in profit and that take that profit. Most of the people that sell Ethereum, they are realizing losses. They are giving up hope. Have a look at this. This is a comparison of Bitcoin in orange and Ethereum in blue. And Ethereum is now very close to the price levels at the beginning of 2023. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is way higher. Now, whenever Bitcoin makes new all-time highs, so when it moved from 16K to 72K and then subsequently to 100K, the long-term holders tend to realize the profit. So that's meant over here with the realized net capital change. This is locking in profit. But then have a look at Ethereum. While recently the realized profit for Bitcoin is a bit smaller, we still see profit taking on average because most people that sell Bitcoin are still in the green. That is different for Ethereum. Ethereum holders are now realizing losses. Very similar to what we have seen when Bitcoin crashed from 20K to 16K. In other words, this is peak bearishness for Ethereum. Ethereum has never seen that negative of a picture. Have a look at the realized cap increase over time. On average, we tend to see this going up for Bitcoin, but for Ethereum, we now see this starting to decline. This is the ratio of the Ethereum price to the Bitcoin price. And since Ethereum moved from proof of work to proof of stake, we saw constant underperformance. So this orange area over here is the quarterly rolling performance. Sometimes Ethereum outperformed, sometimes Bitcoin outperformed, but since the merge, it's pretty much Ethereum underperforming all the time. And that underperformance even accelerated. Over here again, the arrow, that's the move from proof of work to proof of stake. And what was already a negative trend for the subsequent 2 years got even worse in the last few months. We have seen an underperformance of Ethereum of 76% since the merge. Now this chart would imply that there might be potentially a floor once ETH falls another 17% versus Bitcoin. But there's a chart that's a bit more optimistic. This is Ethereum dominance. So how much of all of cryptocurrency's market cap is currently in ETH? And it seems like we've already hit the bottom over here. And so that's what I mean when I say that Ethereum is extremely depressed. People are realizing losses, but maybe right now it's a bit late. I've been bearish on Ethereum for a very long time. Feel free to just check out the history of this channel. Since we moved from proof of work to proof of stake, I tended to bet on falling prices of Ethereum. But I'm not so sure if that's still a wise move. Now the problem is that the overall market still has a lot of way to go down. So for example, this here is the altcoin market cap. And during a bear market in the past, we tended to go down much more. We could just be half the way there. If we suddenly see crypto institutions going bankrupt again, if we suddenly see things similar to the FTX collapse or Terra Luna or Three Arrows Capital, etc., Celsius, if we see things like this, we might hit again the lows of summer 2022 to autumn of 2023. And when we look at Bitcoin's short-term holder cost basis, we are also not yet at very low prices, right? We haven't yet seen oversold territory. The average cost basis for Bitcoin is also still way lower compared to the current price. We could, in theory, and that happened during prior bear markets, fall all the way below the realized price. So a drop of more than 50% from here is definitely possible. And when that's possible, then what will happen to Ethereum? Here's another long-term Bitcoin chart, right? It's simply just two curved lines on the long-term price chart, and they tend to connect the bottoms and the tops pretty well. And again, here we see how there's a potential for a crash up to 40K in Bitcoin. Now, my impression is that the current momentum is still bearish. Crypto prices tend to trend downwards. But I do think that Ethereum, relative to the rest of the market, might have already bottomed. So in US dollars, Ethereum is likely going to continue to fall. That's at least my thesis. But it might not fall more than Bitcoin does. So say Bitcoin goes down by 50%, then Ethereum is likely going to go down by 50% as well. And it's not going to underperform even more. If we are realistic about this market, then the vast majority of assets still performs extremely poorly. In the last year, Polygon Matic went down by 80%. ICP went down by 70%. Render by 65, etc. There's only a few altcoins that outperformed, and very few people bet heavily on Mantra, for example. And that's all happening while in the same time frame Bitcoin went up by 18%. So if you look at this in table form, right, here is Bitcoin and two of the altcoins are just gold derivatives. And yes, there are a few altcoins that did better than Bitcoin, but the vast majority did much, much worse. And most of those altcoins lost in the double digits. Again, while Bitcoin tended to go up. Here's again the altcoin market cap. And I would not be surprised if we see something very similar to what we saw in 2022. We could go much lower. That's what I'm personally betting on. I'm betting on falling altcoin prices since Bitcoin hit 100K. And again, feel free to check out prior videos on this channel. I recommend doing this for any influencer that you're following, right? Check out what they said during those turnaround points. When Bitcoin was at 20K or at 16K, did they say it's time to buy? Did they say it's time to sell when Bitcoin hit 100K? Check out those turnaround points and see if those people tend to be rather right or wrong. And feel free to, of course, do this here with this channel as well. Here is what I believe is going to happen. Bitcoin dominance is likely going to continue to increase. So Bitcoin as a fraction of all of crypto will go up. People tend to be more risk off, and that means altcoins tend to do poorly. Once we hit 70% in Bitcoin dominance again, that's the time to potentially bet on altcoins again. Now is not that time. I believe that the entire year of 2025 will be a time where it makes sense to bet on falling altcoins, where again, most altcoins will continue to do poorly. And since I've been talking about betting on falling altcoins since Bitcoin hit 100K, the community members made quite a bit of money. So here are some trades that the members have shared. If you put in proper leverage, if you bet on the right altcoins, there is a lot of money to be made during times like this. It's not necessarily smart to always just bet on rising prices, to always just hope for the 10x of an altcoin when the overall market tends to rather shrink. Most people are simply too scared to bet on falling prices. It's not as straightforward compared to just buying, right? When we use leverage, when we use perpetual futures, when we use all of those constructs, it seems like it's possible to lose all the money. And yes, if you don't have your risk properly set up, it is not the right thing. But if you learn enough, right? If you figure out what are the right altcoins, what's the right leverage to take, what's the right position sizing to take, then this is the best time in the market. It's easier to make money in a bear market than in a bull market. That's why I've created more than 100 tutorial videos on that. So how to short, how to do risk management, what platforms to use, etc. Of course, I'm also sharing my own trades in real time, so you can copy trade me. This was recently when I closed the Cardano short. So I'm not just saying when I buy something, I'm also saying when I'm closing a position. Because so many people already lost a lot of money with the beginning of this bear market, I have reduced the monthly rate from 165 to 125 per month. There's also a money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, just message me within the first 7 days and I'll refund you 100%. There's really zero risk for you. When we face a market like this, it's wrong to hope for the best. It's wrong to just buy the dips. Buying the dips makes sense during a bull run. But when the market as a whole tends to contract, we do the exact opposite, right? We short the pumps. We bet on falling prices of altcoins that went up and that aren't too risky. It's time to move from this to something like this. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish here regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time in YouTube or see you in Premium. Cheers!